PLC group webinar today. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. And we'd also like to extend a welcome to members of other PLC groups who might be joining us this morning. We've had a lot of weather changes and cancellations this year, so we've extended the invitation to folks from other groups who might have missed their webinar to join our session today. So could I actually just see a show of hands? If you could click on the raise your hand icon if you are a member of a group other than the Welding PLC and you're joining us for today's session. Okay, I don't see any hands raised at the moment, but I anticipate we will have some folks signing on, so that's certainly that's great. We're happy to have them. So we'll go ahead and jump in to our session today. We have a really interesting session today for you, centered around what we're calling NOCTI know-how. But before we do that, just a couple housekeeping items and reminders. We'd like to call to your attention the upcoming PACTech conference, which is taking place in June in Lancaster. We are going to be presenting a PLC breakout session at that conference. We're still working on the exact details of the format for that. In fact, we sent out a request last week asking for your input on what you would like to hear about or talk about at that session. So if you haven't had a chance to complete that quick survey, please do that, because we want to make sure that the session is of interest and useful for you. And I'd also like to clarify that the breakout session at the PACTech conference will be our final meeting, our final in-person meeting of our PLCs for this year. There was some information that had been circulated with a date and location of 7 Springs for a meeting, and that is inaccurate. That was last year's information. So our final in-person meeting for this year's groups will be at the PACTech conference. Does anyone have any questions about that? If you do, please raise your hand or type that into the question box. Okay, and just a note that if you do have any questions or comments as we go through our presentation today, we do welcome you to raise your hand or type that into the question box. My colleague Kathy and I will be monitoring questions throughout our session, and we look forward to your feedback. Also, we'd like to ask you if you are sharing an internet connection with a colleague. So if there is more than one person logged in, could you please type in the names of everyone who is sharing that connection so that we can make sure that you all get credit for your participation today. Okay, so today's session, as I mentioned, is focusing on NOCTI know-how, and we have some guest presenters with us. I'll tell you a little bit more about them as they are introduced for their respective sessions, but we have Mrs. Michelle Bonser from Monroe CTI and Ms. Darla Gettle from Lebanon County CTC joining us today. I wanted to reflect back to you some of the input that we received when we sent out a request asking you about the various challenges that you encounter with your students and helping them succeed on the NOCTI test. I'll give you a minute just to review this. This is a compilation of feedback that we received from your group as well as from some of the others. There were some common themes, as you can probably imagine, so I'll give you a second to take a look at this. And if I could ask Michelle and Darla, do you have any thoughts on some of the challenges that are shared here? I think, for example, one of the first one there, the length of the written test. I believe that Darla, perhaps you had a thought on how that could be alleviated.
Yeah, as the NOCTI site coordinator here at Lebanon, we made a decision to break up the test into different sessions, and I think Michelle talks about this a little bit when she presents as well. That you do have the option to give the test in 1, 2, or 3 sittings. So we have opted to do 2 sessions we have full-day programs here, so we do 2 sessions for them, split the test in half, and our half-day students take it actually over a course of 3 days.
This is Michelle. Yes, same thing. We have broken the test up into 2 days, and we also do some work with the students before the NOCTI test so that they're familiar with the process of taking the test, and give them test-taking tips and try to get them so they're a little calmer when they come in to do that.
Great, thank you. And much of what we're looking at here is going to be addressed during our presentations today. So helping students achieve a comfort level with taking the test, practicing, getting their nerves under control and whatnot will be some of the strategies that we'll be talking about today. So we appreciate everyone's responses to that. Kathy, did you have anything that you would like to add about these challenges?
Excuse me. No, I do not at this time. Nope, and there are no questions.
Okay, and I apologize. I know I'm catching you a bit off guard because you're seeing them for the first time today, but
Jennifer,
okay.
Can I make a comment? I wanted to make a comment on the no incentive, not a graduation requirement. I think I had shared with the last PLC group that at Lebanon we had made the decision to make the NOCTI assessment a final grade for our students. So it actually counts 10% of the student's overall grade at our Career and Tech Center. So that's something that we implemented this year. We're not sure if that will make a difference into, making the students understand the importance of the NOCTI assessment, but we're hoping that it does.
Right, and thank you for reminding me about that and for sharing that. I appreciate that. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn our presentation over, first off, to Mrs. Michelle Bonser, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. You've heard her briefly, but she has been an instructor at Monroe CTI for the last 17 years, and she has taught applied math and Algebra 1 as part of their 9th grade program, and anatomy and physiology, as well as medical math for the health program. Currently, she assists their program instructors with the integration of math into their curriculum, and she provides professional development to improve student achievement. So we're very happy to have you, and look forward to hearing from you on NOCTI tips for the classroom. I'll go ahead and turn over the presentation control to you so you can show your slides. Bear with me.
Okay.
And Michelle, this is Kathy. Would you like me to jump in with questions as they become available, or hold them till the end?
Questions will be fine during the presentation. That's fine.
Okay.
No problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Let me do that. Show my screen. Hopefully we've gone to that.
We can see it, and
okay.
Slide mode. Looks
there
great.
We
Thank
get
you.
into slide mode. All right. Let me see. Do you still have also that go to webinar thing on the side?
No, that only appears on your
Okay.
sheet machine.
Good. All right. Then I'll try and work around that. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. I'm sorry?
You can move that, Michelle, if you want to get that off your screen, the little red arrow, that will slide it off screen.
Okay, yeah, I see that. All right, we'll get rid of that. Thank you. All righty. So again, thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to participate today, and thank you for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. What I'm going to be talking about is some of the school-wide initiatives we did at MCTI in order to improve our NOCTI scores. We made a very concerted effort to improve NOCTI scores across the board, and it has paid off for us, and we've done very well the last several years. And one of the things I want to mention that this was definitely a collaboration between administration, coaches, teachers, and students with that single goal that we wanted to improve our NOCTI scores. All right. One thing that we believe very strongly in is that we need to have some data about what is going on in the classrooms. So we started gathering data about the students, how they were viewing the test, how they were taking the test. We were looking at the pre and post test results. we were spending individual time with teachers discussing data, not in a group, but sitting down with our coaches with their data analysis and working side by side to look at what kinds of things their students needed. We looked at the task link reports the last several years, and we also then did, let me get rid of this thing, and we also worked with some of the data analysis techniques from Todd Luke that he shared at the Integrated Conference in November. We spent some time with teachers going through and doing that analysis. That gave them a lot more information than they ever had before from those task link reports. And then also we do get the integrated academic score reports, because our focus here is integrating mathematics and English language arts, and we want to make sure that our teachers know what kind of academic information they have from their students, from the NOCTI, and that they use it to improve their student performance. Okay. One of the things that we are doing is that we are preparing the students to take the NOCTI. We have a pre-NOCTI meeting with the students so that we can introduce the computer system, show them how to log in, show them what the test looks like, how to mark their questions, how to go back through the summaries. So we get them familiar with the system. We're also preparing all students for the NOCTI. We discovered when we did some research that the teachers began preparing their seniors for NOCTI rather than their sophomores or their freshmen. So from now on, when you come in, kids know about NOCTI from the day they walk through the door. All students are preparing for NOCTI. After all, it is their content. Test-taking tips. I've handed out a couple of forms for test-taking tips, and I'll give you an opportunity to have that handout today. And also, we are asking teachers as they review their data to incorporate that and use new instructional strategies in a yearly NOCTI preparation plan. So again, this idea of cooperation between all parts of the school towards improving NOCTI. Here are a couple slides with the test-taking tips. I know Jennifer is going to send you this handout, so please don't worry about copying down. You'll get them all. But it's one of the things that we're giving the teachers so that they can spend some time with their students reviewing how to take a test, a high-stakes test, how to take a test online, so the kids are familiar with that. So just a couple of things there. Some information about multiple choice questions, since that's what we're looking at on the NOCTI, what to do, how to answer some of those if you're stuck. It's easy if you can answer them and you know the answer, but what do you do if you're not sure? So some suggestions for them, all right, about choosing different types of options, what to do. One of the other things that we do focus on here is mathematics, and we started, this is our third year, we started 2 years ago, math problem of the day. Each month there is a topic for the month, and teachers are given just general math problems that are associated with that topic. They're given the problems and the answers. They may, if they want to, use that as a little bit of math every day in their program area. The problems are not program specific, although some of them may be more applicable to one program or another. They're just general problems that I have found on the internet or from college application tests, pre-tests, post-tests, anywhere I could find a good word problem. I kind of adapted it and used it here in these problems of the day. The other thing that we are interested with integrated mathematics is we had a big push so that all the students could use calculators appropriately. And the teachers, because sometimes they had a little trouble with it. So we practiced using calculators, and we also had teachers purchasing calculators for their classroom so they're available when the students want to use them during any time during the classroom if it's appropriate for their trade area. Here's an example of the math problem of the day. What you notice is that they are rather long. It's not a basic problem. They are set in a scenario, and that's one of the reasons we choose to do that is because kids have the most trouble working with word problems, picking out the information. So this gives them practice. They should be problems that many of the teachers can relate back to either family life or everyday life, or maybe even their program area. They could expand it and show how it fits into that. For instance, in the first one for December, that would be appropriate for carpentry or building trades class. In the second one, pretty much just a problem, a general problem that the kids might see on a placement test for college or any other kind of placement test. There is a set of these for every month. If you want to see what we've done so far this year, you can go to our website, monroecti.org, under the Resources tab. Click on Numeracy Resources, and all of the problems are there. The answer keys aren't there, but if you're desperate, let me know, and I'd be happy to scan it and send it to you. All right? Here are some pictures of our students doing some of the things that we've been talking about. Hotel management students using calculators in class to do their work for problem solving. We also have had a push in the last year about the Common Core Standards of Mathematical Practice. Our teachers are in the process of creating essential math problems for each program area. These are problems that we've defined as problems that kids should be able to do when they get out of your program. We are also focusing on consistent practice of these essential problems, timely feedback within a 48-hour period, and building numeracy to improve problem solving through direct instruction in some cases, and then cooperative learning in other cases. So we're really focusing on the mathematics that is part of the program content. As far as an essential math problem, here's the definition that I gave to teachers that I felt an essential math problem would be. They would exemplify the mathematics that the students must know how to do to be successful on the NOCTI. Certification tests are the job. This is not a long list. Hopefully we'd like them to really look hard at the problems and the math that they have to do in their program area and create a short list. If this is a very math-heavy program, then the idea is to divide it up by levels so that each level gets math problems as they build towards their senior year. They look like problems similar to the ones that you have on the you saw on the problems of the day. They're not content, but they're not a test or a series of multiple choice questions. They are really word problems that can be expanded to include those mathematical standards of practice.
Michelle, could I jump in with a couple of questions from Jim?
Yes.
Jim asked, and maybe someone else would have an answer for this. He said there is a company that makes trade-specific calculators. They do make one for welding math. Yeah. And then he said, I have used them and they are nice, but are we allowed to use calculators on the NOCTI?
From my understanding, there are some trade-specific calculators. We have, our carpentry people have trade-specific calculators. But I also understand from NOCTI that they are not allowed to be used at this time. You can either use a calculator that's provided during the NOCTI test, or you could use a non-programmable calculator, from my information according to the NOCTI test. Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's it so far, Jim. If that did not answer your question, feel free to type something else in. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. All right. I'm giving you here on the next slide an essential problem example. I have two different ones. These problems are basic problems. I'm actually working with the teachers to increase the rigor of these problems by adding some additional information and also adding some more questions that would be higher rigor and more depth of knowledge questions. So we're just kind of getting into the essential math problems. I don't have a lot to give you with that because this is the first year we're working with it. But I think it's going to be something that's going to be very useful for our teachers over the next several years. So you can get the idea of what some kinds of those problems look like. Here's some computer students. They're working together in a pair to solve the math problem of the day. All right, and then their teacher would be giving them some feedback about their work. One of the other things we did besides math, and I have to bring in some English language arts strategies because I'm not in this by myself. I have a English language arts coach that works right alongside of me, and we work together to be able to improve the academics of our students. One of the things she suggested to the teachers that we worked very hard with before NOCTI was vocabulary improvement, both just regular vocabulary the students might see in the course of a question and their trade vocabulary. We suggested things like flashcards and word walls, provided them the resources to do that, markers and paper and ideas during individual meetings. Another great content retention strategy that I found at my coaching conference, the PIC coaching conference, is note making. Dinah Zeich has a website, and she has a technique called foldables, which is using different types of cardboard and construction paper to make note pieces. It's not like taking notes. It's better. It's very visual, it's very tactile, and for a lot of our students, they do enjoy making notes that they can interact with a little bit more. If you've never checked that out, I would suggest you do that. The stuff is pretty inexpensive compared to a lot of other things I've seen, and it's a nice way for kids to start to learn some content and retain that content for a little bit longer. You can see here's a word wall from our criminal justice or law enforcement students. They actually designed their vocabulary in the shape of their patch. So they took it right there and made it special for their program area. Here's an example of some health occupation students working with their foldables. You can see some of the different colors. They can be used for study. They can be used for note-taking. They have a lot of uses in the classroom. As far as English language arts, continuing this year, we've done, over the last couple of years, done reading for comprehension strategies, chunking information, teachers using articles to improve student reading and vocabulary. We also have been using some technology like the Quizlet and Collins writing, which we learned about again through the PIC coaching conferences and PLN. So Collins writing skills. So Collins writing is particularly something we're working on this year. Here's some kids doing some circles, some vocabulary circles with flashcards. And we also have a technology coach here, and he has been busy giving the teachers information about using technology to help students study for the NOCTI. We just recently began to allow students to use their own personal devices. It wasn't easy, but we've come up with some ways for kids to use their personal devices, like smartphones and tablets in the classroom. We also provide school desktops, laptops, and Chromebooks that are available for teachers to use and borrow for their classrooms. Some of the things that our technology coach has given the teachers are Quizlet and Socrative. All right, both areas that have some very good web-based information and products that you can use to improve your students' achievement by giving them some high-interest technology. The other thing he suggested is if you're looking for things to help students during their performance part of the NOCTI, skills practice using camcorders. It makes them, hopefully makes them a little less nervous during that performance part. Here's a student using his personal cell phone to work on a project in computerized machine technology. He's using an app that he's downloaded. In the classroom, the teachers are making NOCTI review a part of their regular weekly instruction. We've done some modeling of strategies as coaches in the classroom to help teachers use some of those cooperative group and talking strategies. and teachers actually put their essential vocabulary pretty much any place in the program area, from the back of the bathroom doors to inside lockers, everywhere they would go. All right. In talking about the post-test, what we did over the last couple of years is to give kids the opportunity to use calculators, divided the test into 2 parts. This showed that they had some less test anxiety, and also they were much more interested in NOCTI and knowing what their scores were. They want to be able to come back and score that test and see what they got. All right. Okay, that about wraps me up. If you want any more information or if I can help you in any way, please feel free to email me. There's my email address, and I'll be happy to work with you. And if there's any other questions, I'm ready.
Okay, this is Jennifer. Thank you so much, Michelle. You're speedy today.
Yeah. Yep, I tried to keep it to my 20 minutes. I was good.
That was fantastic, and a lot of information there. Do we have any questions or comments from our PLC members? If so, please raise your hand or type that into the question box.
Jennifer, while we're waiting, this is Kathy. While we're waiting for people to type in their questions, I want to give a shout out, Michelle, to Collins Writing. We started that at Lehigh Career and Technical Institute a few years ago, and it's so appropriate if you're feeling like I'm not particularly great at writing, or I'm not a writing teacher. Collins Writing, especially types 1 and 2, are very non-threatening for both the teacher and the student, and there is actually a booklet on Collins, how to start Collins Writing specifically for the CTE teacher, with lots of good writing prompts and examples. So that Collins website would have that.
Yes, it does. It's an excellent book. It's not even very expensive, so you can purchase it. I know our English language arts teacher has adapted some of the things from Collins and also written a lot of her own, and is getting the teachers to practice that Collins writing. And again, like you said, they're not as fearful of it.
Right. We do have a comment from Jay. He said, Quizlet is wonderful. I use it for test reviews, but I create all of my own information. Anyone can create info. Sometimes it is correct. So what he's saying is that when you go on Quizlet, you can either use a quiz that's already developed by another teacher, or you can create your own quiz. And I know exactly what you mean, Jay. Sometimes you go in and you get excited and think, wow, there's already a welding quiz here, but it may not be the information that you want your kids to work on. So thanks for that, Jay. Quizlet is the website.
I'm curious, this is Jennifer, I'm curious, could we have a show of hands from our PLC members of how many folks are familiar with Quizlet or have used it in the past or currently? Just click on the raise your hand icon, please, if you're familiar with that. Oh, I just see one hand raised. So is that, thank you for raising your hand, Jay. Please raise your hand if that's something you would be interested in learning more about. Quizlet and similar.
Richard also did raise his hand.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are more.
Okay.
Good.
Yep, there are some hands, quite a few hands going up. So perhaps that could be something we could cover at the PAC Tech conference, Quizlet and some of the other applications and different technology-related tools that are available. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Michelle before we switch gears? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate it. And as Michelle mentioned, the resources that she referred to, the test-taking strategies and some of the other information, we will distribute to our PLC members via email following our session today. So you'll have those as a reference point. And as she mentioned, she's also available if you do have follow-up questions. So we thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure, and you're welcome to stay on for the rest of our session, or if you need to get back to your classroom area.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right.
I'm going to go ahead and the
While you're
presentation.
switching gears there, Jennifer, can I read some comments that just came
Oh,
in?
sure. Go ahead, please.
Jay said students can access, I believe we're still talking about Quizlet, from their own phones to practice anywhere. Getting them to do so is another matter. Yeah, that's always the case. And then Jim said we use, that's Socrative. Jim said he uses that. It is an iPad app that is really, really good for giving tests and quizzes. So I'll add that to our list for PackTech possibilities, Socrative. And then Jim also said you just have to have enough iPads for all of your students too if you want to use it as an app on iPads or, yeah, I was going to say iPhones, but we're certainly not going to supply those. Thank you guys for those comments, and I will jot down Socrative as another possible.
Great. Thank you, Kathy, and thanks for those who contributed. At this point, I'd like to turn over our presentation to Ms. Darla Gettle, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. She has been working at the Lebanon County CTC for the past 20 years, and she began her career as the office technology instructor and then moved to a school counselor position in 2005. Her title is school counselor, but her responsibilities are wide-ranging, including managing all aspects of the secondary student information system, as well as serving as the NOCTI site coordinator for the past 8 years. So she's going to give us a tour of some of the resources and information that's available on the NOCTI website, and also I believe she could address questions that you may have related to the NOCTI test and how that can be structured. So with that, I will turn over the microphone to you, Darla.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. As Jennifer said, I work at the Lebanon County CTC, and I am the NOCTI site coordinator here. Lori Barnes from Penn State Greater Allegheny asked if I would show you some of the resources on the NOCTI website that you might be able to utilize in your classroom. And just to do an overview of the NOCTI testing and go over some security issues and things like that. So I'm just I'm going to kind of walk you through, if my voice works or words work this morning, through a little bit on the NOCTI website. I'm not sure how familiar all of you are with the NOCTI website. I'm sure your site coordinators are, but you as a teacher may or may not be. I am now on the NOCTI website, as you can see, and there is actually a Teacher's Corner icon over here on the right-hand side. You'll notice also this area that is kind of scrolling through different things. They change that often, and here's some stuff about CTE month in February. Hopefully some of you are doing something about CTE month at your schools. Here's some sign-ups for a free webinar, 10-minute webinars. Here's information on some new banners and posters that NOCTI has available now that you can order, etc. So that generally gives you some quick updates on some new things at NOCTI if you have an interest in that. The main area you probably want to go into, though, is the Teacher's Corner, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And the first thing I would suggest you do is to click to get the teacher emails and updates from NOCTI. So on the Welcome tab, all you do is click to sign up for to receive those emails, put in your information, submit your information, and you will be receiving emails periodically from NOCTI with any updates that might be appropriate for you. So I would highly encourage you to do that. They also have a teacher spotlight area. Here's the video contest information. Here's a little icon about CTE month, etc. So you can even nominate a teacher for the teacher spotlight if you would like to at this section of the website. If you click on the Teacher's Role tab, there is a bunch of information here as well, but I think the main thing you might want to know is what is your role in performance testing. I get that question a lot from the instructors here at my school, and if you click on that, it does give you some information. I also thought I would highlight to you some areas. I just recently did a faculty meeting about NOCTI, and I handed out some information to our instructors. And some of the things that really do come up about your role have to do with test security and can you be there, can you not be there, how much interaction can I have, etc. So I took a document that I shared with our instructors, and I highlighted in red some applicable areas that you might want to be aware of. Under security and accommodations, I'm just going to kind of read through these. And you may have some questions, feel free to ask. Instructors are not able to observe the performance test. Instructors should be working in their offices without a direct view of the performance testing. Now, we allow our teachers to be in their offices. However, some schools do not allow that. They have their teachers, report to a conference room and they're a phone call away, etc. That's up to the individual school, how they want to secure the testing area and instructors' involvement in the testing, but this is how we handle it at our school. Something that I learned at the recent NOCTI Site Coordinator Conference, which I really didn't know, is students are not allowed to serve as patients or clients during performance testing. I believe it's our health careers, which is I think it used to be the nurse assisting test. Now it's health assisting, so I'm not quite sure because that's a new test this year for that particular zip code. But, and welding, this doesn't probably apply to you, but students are not allowed to serve in that capacity, and they were doing that and not knowing any better, and me not knowing any better. Students that are not taking NOCTI may not be present and observing the performance test. That's also something that I think a lot of people were not aware of when we went to the NOCTI Site Coordinator Conference. You have multi-levels of students in your classes oftentimes, and of course only your seniors are taking the NOCTI test. So you want to have an alternate place or alternate something for those other students, if they are not taking NOCTI, to not be involved in the testing process. So you have to talk to your administration probably and make sure your site coordinator is aware as well that these other students cannot be present. Instructors should not have access to any of the student or evaluator testing materials. This is a really important one as well. There should be check-in and check-out procedures with your evaluators that are coming in to perform or to evaluate the performance testing. You want to make sure, or your NOCTI site coordinator wants to make sure that you as the instructor should not be in contact with the testing materials at all. I think we had a question on one of the other PLC webinars that we did where an instructor was asking about being in the testing area to tell kids go here, go there, whatever. That as well. You should not be handing off, okay, this is student A's test material from job 1, you're now taking it and giving it to evaluator doing job 2. That should be the evaluator's job to get the information, the testing booklets, etc., from one job to the other for the students, because the students should never have their score sheet given back to them. They need to tear it out of the book, they give it to the evaluator, and then those evaluators circulate it amongst themselves. But it should never go back in the hands of the student. And that's something I have our evaluators come in, I do a orientation with them, and I make sure that those evaluators are aware of those procedures. Who are permissible evaluators? That's a role that you actually definitely assist with performance testing, in the fact that you often will recommend people to serve as evaluators. And down in another portion of my document, let me just get to that part. That's not what I want. Just a second. By the way, what I'm showing you is the new guide to student testing. I was fortunate to be involved in the process of creating this guide with Penn State Greater Allegheny. Unfortunately, it's still a PDE for review and blessing before it goes out on the PA Career Tech, I think it is, website. But so this is excerpts from that guide that will be coming out hopefully in the very near future. But as you can see, we've had this issue in the past at Lebanon. Relatives, recently retired teachers, and recently graduated students should not be considered ideal candidates for performance evaluators, as their connection to the instructor or students could be questioned. So something to think about, site coordinators as well to think about, that you know, we had like a sister-in-law or someone evaluating in our health careers program. We had the father, you know, of our auto body instructor evaluating students before we really were made aware of these security issues. So something to think about with that when you are assisting your site coordinator in picking evaluators. And accommodations must be made for performance testing as well as written testing. That was made clear to us by Dr. Burkett, who is the head of the Bureau of Career and Technical Education. And I mean, that can be a difficult situation to create those accommodations for performance testing due to extended time, etc. So you want to take that into consideration as well. So those are just a few things that I thought you might find helpful that I shared with our instructors at Lebanon regarding security and test administration and your involvement in that process. Are there any questions at this point? Because sometimes there are.
Yes, Darla, this is Kathy.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, I thought I was still on mute.
Yes.
We do have a question. How about OAC members? Are they allowed to?
Absolutely. That's what NOCTI encourages, and I'm sorry, it was probably in that document further down. Unfortunately, no, wait, see if I can, trying to get my scroll bar working here. Maybe if I page down. No. Hold on. Actually, I believe they actually encourage in the document OAC members. So yes, that is definitely, as long as that OAC member isn't a relative or, you know what I mean, or a student that recently graduated in the last year or so, or a recently retired teacher.
And are there any accommodations for students who are enrolled in an ESL program? Are they able to take this?
Yes, I have a section here. Let me scroll to it. I think it's down further. Just a minute. Actually, I highlighted the calculator thing now because as I was listening to the webinar earlier, here is what the guidelines are in the Guide to Student Testing for Pennsylvania for NOCTI is non-program, and I'll get to the ELL question in a minute. Non-programmable calculators are permitted to be used during NOCTI assessments. There is a calculator built into NOCTI's online assessment system, and for NIMS testing, the new calculator for calculated industries developed for machinists is permitted to be used. So, also the electric code book, students are permitted to use the electric code book. This doesn't apply to the welding people, but FYI. Accommodations, this comes directly out of that guide as well, and I think I have something for ELL here. Bear with me.
While you're looking,
there we go. Sure, go ahead.
There also is, Richard's asking, are there any suggestions for performance accommodations for performance testing? This is the first I am hearing of NOCTI allowing accommodations for performance. So,
sure. The same allowable accommodations as written, as in what I'm having here, allowable accommodations. Text-to-speech, of course, is not something you can do on the performance test, but I believe you are allowed to have someone assist students in reading the directions to the student, I believe. Here, readers. A reader may be used to read and clarify as appropriate. Can you see that section of my screen here?
Yes.
So this gives you a little bit of definition on that part. Extended time for performance testing. And the thing is, you know, I was an instructor. I know how difficult it is to get evaluators in, and then to have extended time. Sometimes, you know, the test already takes numerous hours. Extended time could make it that you need someone to come in another day or something like that, which does make it difficult. We have suggested to our staff that attends IEP meetings to maybe suggest at an IEP meeting that, you know, extended time may not be a reasonable requirement for a NOCTI test due to the specific nature of industry standards and expecting, you know, students to be able to complete a specific task in a certain amount of time. And they might be working with the IEP team to write something specifically in the IEP that the extended time does not apply to NOCTI. So
okay.
That's a suggestion. I don't know. It all depends on what your, you know, the people are that you work with, if they would be open to that particular verbiage in the IEP or not. But extended time, visual assistance. Here's the performance component. A reader, as defined above, is permitted to be used for the performance component. An accommodation is not permitted if it negates the validity of the assessment, reading or reading assessment, for example. Since the performance component is assessing the ability of the student to perform a particular skill, then having the task performed for the student by another person would negate the validity of the assessment. So, FYI. And then going back to your English language learners, here's verbiage about the English language learners. And I will gladly, I didn't put all these on a PowerPoint just because I didn't, but I will gladly send this document to Jennifer if she would like to share it. It will all be out on the website, not NOCTI's website, but the PA Career Tech, I think, is the name of the website eventually. But I just checked today, and it's still not updated, unfortunately. But I believe ELLs are allowed to have a word-to-word dictionary. I believe that's what it says.
And you did just answer Frank's question. He asked if this particular document would be made available to PLC members, so that would be, I think, helpful. We're getting some questions. I know as a coach at Lehigh, I'm a former ESL teacher as well, and I always I never found this information. I mean, I couldn't find anything for ELL, so this is new to me as well. But we do have two more questions.
Sure.
Are our judges supposed to be familiar with accommodations and IEP, which I would think would be private, but or you know, a legal issue? I have a difficult enough time just finding judges that can attend during the day, much less being familiar with IEPs and accommodations. And then let me just shoot you the second question right away. May we use assistants to be readers or assist with accommodations, or are they too close, you know, familiar with the students? So first question is judges, and then can instructional assistants help with the accommodations?
You know what? I don't want to answer on behalf of I'm not the NOCTI security person or the Penn State, you know what I mean, person. So, and those are two really, really great questions that I prefer to defer to Lori Barnes and NOCTI and Heidi Spiess at NOCTI. So if you wouldn't mind noting those, and we can find those answers and respond. I just hate to, I'm just not quite sure. You know what I mean?
That's okay. I will take note of those questions, and if we can
Those are great questions that now that he or she is asking them, I think those are great questions for me to know the answer to, too, as the site coordinator at Lebanon.
Yeah, it's a great question. Should the judge be aware that that child is supposed to have the accommodations because if they're not being offered?
Yeah, they definitely should be aware, I believe, of the accommodations. I think what it says here, too, is you need to have your special POPs department or whoever does IEPs work in collaboration, you know, with your administration, et cetera, to define what accommodation, how you're going to accommodate these students. So, you know, I think that's for those individuals to discuss. I'm trying to look where that part of the document is. Also, there is a link here for more information on accommodations. Refer to PD's website, and there is a link to the accommodations information through PDE. So, but I think that's something to research a little bit more, that maybe we should have, maybe some more detail in the in this document might be advisable.
Mm-hmm.
So we can follow up with NOCTI and Penn State Greater Allegheny on that.
Okay. And then who is responsible to provide and contact the proctor? Is it the instructor or the site coordinator?
Provide and contact the instructor. Well, the site coordinator probably does not have the connections to people in industry that could come in. So here at our school and at most schools, it's the instructor's responsibility to secure evaluators. I believe, I'm not sure if the website says that. Just seeing. No, it's not the proper screen. But yes, the instructor is, I mean, if they have an issue with not being able to find an evaluator, I think they need to contact their site coordinator and or administrator in their building, indicating that they're having, difficulties in securing evaluators. What was the second part of that question?
Just who's responsible to provide and to contact the proctor.
Yeah, and the instructor needs to contact, because they're the ones that, usually know when the test, I mean, of course the site coordinator knows when it's occurring, but they are the person that most likely is in contact with this person through their OAC committee, et cetera, to let them know when they need to show up for the performance testing.
Thank you. That concludes the questions that are here right now.
Okay. So going back a little bit, to this Teacher's Corner website, just looking. Sorry, I just wanted to review something. Okay, so on the How Do I tab, how do I prepare students for NOCTI testing? Where is that part? Oh, here we go. Sorry. How do I prepare students for NOCTI testing? This might be an appropriate area, for an instructor to look at. The assessment blueprints, we'll talk about where you can access those. Hopefully your site coordinator is communicating to you where you can get the assessment blueprints, the instructor prep packs, et cetera, and I'm going to show you here where you can get them in case you don't hear from your site coordinator. Study guides, of course, everyone is provided study guides at the beginning of the school year. Your site coordinator should be ordering those through NOCTI and Penn State Greater Allegheny. There are countdown kits as well that teachers can order that kind of help prep students, etc. Another area under this particular tab that you might find useful is the score report quick view. Sorry, my other line's buzzing there. This is just a nice little handout that kind of explains the score reports, the group score report, etc., and the analysis of scores report. Hopefully all of you are getting the information from your site coordinators after your students have tested, that they are forwarding all the score reports to you. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the task level reports. That's it's not a new report, it's just a new free report. They used to have to be purchased through NOCTI. Now they're available for free. So if your site coordinator does not provide you with the task level reports, you definitely would like to follow up with your site coordinator and ask, because these task level reports provide you much more information about what is on the written assessment specifically, and also in the performance area as well. It gives you more detailed information on how the students are assessed and what they are assessed on. Could I ask if is there anyone out there that is not familiar with the task level reports?
Sure. Could we ask our attendees, please raise your hand if you are not familiar or have not seen the task level report for your students' NOCTI exams. Okay. I see one or two hands raised.
Okay. I would just suggest to them to contact their site coordinator and ask about that, and see if their site coordinator is aware, because that does give you a lot more information about the tests that your students take. So just wanted to share that as well.
Okay.
I think I was going to go over the allowable accommodations, which here they all are. It was kind of in that document I shared with you a little bit earlier, but here is the NOCTI website. But I do think the PA State Guide to Student Testing, once it comes out, will be much more specific and more usable for you. Then under the reports section, you might want to print this Parent's Guide for Interpreting NOCTI Scores to give out at a Parents' Night, new parent orientation, new student packet, if you're going home with forms, forms for the school that the student has to complete, to go home to parents, just to let them know about NOCTI and what it is. We definitely, at our new student orientation, discuss what NOCTI is, because we want our parents to understand the importance of the NOCTI assessment, and for them to, communicate to their child, that it's important as well. So this is just a nice little flyer, so to speak, about the NOCTI assessment testing that is geared more toward parents that you might find useful. Then under tools, this is where you can get your assessment blueprints. I'm assuming everyone is familiar with blueprints. If you aren't, this is where you can get them. It's basically, for welding, you just click on the W, you can click on welding, and your assessment blueprint comes up. If you get the study guides, you should be very familiar with the blueprint. The study guides look very familiar, or very similar rather, to the study guide information. It walks you through, the written assessment. There's 162 questions. They get 3 hours to take it. Again, 1, 2, or 3 sessions, depending how your NOCTI site coordinator sets up your testing. It tells you the areas of the test and the percentage of area or of questions devoted to that area on the test. It then talks about some specific competencies and skills tested. I want to go down a page. Let me do it this way. It gives you sample questions. It goes over the performance assessment, the number of jobs on the performance assessment, the amount of time that needs to be given for each particular, the total time for the test is here. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you, the one thing I think this misses is the amount of time per job. That you have to get in the instructor prep pack, and I'll show you where those are. It tells you, again, the percentages of the jobs, how many questions are devoted to oxy-fuel cutting, what percentage of the test is devoted to aluminum, I don't know, GTAW. I'm probably sounding really stupid now because I don't know welding, but anyway, etc. So it gives you a nice overview of the test, which I'm sure, I hope, there's no one out there that has not seen the NOCTI blueprint.
Darla, could I jump in with a question from Richard?
Sure.
This is an interesting question. How long are we locked in to using NOCTI? Not too many employers are familiar with NOCTI. AWS testing is the standard in industry. If anyone has a comment to make on that, if you want to raise your hand, we will unmute you and you can comment or you can type in. We did have Dr. Burkett, the director of BCTE, was on this webinar, but I think she has stepped out. So that might be another question.
Yeah, she would be the best one to address that question, but at this point, from my understanding from all of the, I go to a lot of the administrator conferences, NOCTI is what Pennsylvania is choosing as the end of program assessment of choice, and I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. That's my own personal opinion of where we're headed, but I'm probably not the right person to answer that question.
Might be something, though, if, you know, this is one of the purposes of the PLC is to help you all network within the state, you know, helping welding instructors network. That might be something that you want to reach out to others and maybe take that up with Dr. Burkett. I'm going to unmute Elizabeth, if you don't mind, so I can let her ask her question or make her comment. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
We can.
I'm using my speakerphone. I don't know why it's still showing as unmuted, but maybe because I don't have a microphone on my computer. I work at Temple now, but I was a site coordinator at a CTC for 11 years, and I would bet my entire retirement that NOCTI tests are not going away. In fact, you're going to be seeing more coming out from NOCTI that have to do with CTCs in Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania's move towards a lot of those PA-specific tests were designed to make them more relevant to industry in Pennsylvania. But every time, and every school I've ever been to has brought up this same thing, and I know it from experience, employers have never heard of NOCTI. They do not consider that any kind of a credential. But NOCTI will tell you, and I think PDE will reiterate that it's the job of the schools and the co-op coordinators to make them aware of it. I don't think NOCTI is going away anytime soon.
Is that is that specific to welding, that employers are not familiar with it, or is that in other?
Oh, no. I've never met an employer in any industry that says, oh, yeah, I know about the NOCTI test. I think that's an education thing.
I did not know that. That is so interesting. And I have another.
I was a co-op coordinator as well, and I've never heard of any employer who was not on a school's OAC who has ever heard of NOCTI testing.
Oh wow, I did not know that. I have two more comments. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, Elizabeth. Were you finished?
Yes, I'm done.
Thank you so much. Great input. Jay also said, Darla, do you mind if I keep going with the comments?
That's fine.
Jay said another interesting thing. In the study guide, I found 10% of the question answers incorrect for electrical. He's in electrical. How can we contact someone about the mistakes? I always wondered how many mistakes they have on the real test, which we never see. And then,
well, I can actually address some of those questions because I just sat in last evening and the other week on some subject matter expert trainings. These are the people like on your OAC who review the tests from NOCTI. And well, one thing, and I can say also, I just gave a pilot test for computer repair or computer technology the other day, and the evaluator that evaluated that particular assessment with our students gave me numerous comments and feedback, and I emailed them directly to Heidi Spies at NOCTI. She is very, very good at listening to concerns, etc. So first of all, you can email, or your site coordinator can email Heidi Spies at NOCTI with any issues on the test or in the study guides that you think the answers are wrong. As for the subject matter expert training, these are people that actually review the test and help develop cut scores, and they are also told in the training that if there are issues with the test that they blatantly see are incorrect, to email NOCTI. So I'm not sure. I've heard that before as well. that there are errors in the test. So I do think NOCTI tries very hard to fix anything that is wrong. Heidi's always very good about getting back to me, and you know, when I emailed her just the other day, she said, thank you so much. These are the kinds of comments we need to make these tests better, etc. So maybe that answered his question. I'm not sure.
Darla, this is Jennifer. We have just a few minutes. Thank you for addressing it. We have just a few minutes remaining. Are there any other
yeah, I just want to show the teacher resources login and make sure that they know this is where they can get their instructor prep packs, because they can go through this other stuff themselves. But make sure over here the teacher resources login is the only place you can get the instructor prep pack, and that tells you as the instructor how to set up your lab for the testing. So you need to enter your site code, so you would need to get that if you don't know it from your testing coordinator. And you also need to get the teacher resources login for your site coordinator as well, from your site coordinator. They are the only ones that have access to that password, so they need to give that to you. And I believe it changes every year. So you want to make sure that you ask them for that. So then you log in, and here are the instructor prep packs. And I am hopeful that everyone has seen the instructor prep packs, because they're very beneficial. It tells the, it's loading here, the instructor, this is just kind of garbly-goop in the beginning. Let me get to the part that's kind of important. Gotta find it, sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't look at this particular one before. I should have probably before I used it, but I wanted to make sure I showed the one that's relevant to them. And you do know that you have a revised test this year. Here it tells you what job 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are. Of course, you know that from the blueprint, but it also gives you, you know, what you need to have in your lab and how it is set up. Here's the shielded metal arc welding, the gas metal, blah, blah, blah. Additional apparatus you should have available, miscellaneous things you should have available on hand, personal protective equipment needed for the assessments, consumable supplies that you need. And here's, I've never seen this one before, I apologize, but this is a brand new test, so maybe that's why. The Evaluators material list. And then it tells you here also the amount of time a student gets for each job. Job 1, 30 minutes, job 2, an hour, yada, yada, yada. So that kind of, you know, gives you a lot more information on how you need to have your lab set up when that evaluator walks in the door with all of the student packets and that they're ready to start testing. So that teacher resources login, I think the instructor prep packs are extremely useful, and you want to definitely make sure you know how to get there and be able to get them yourself instead of having to rely on your site coordinator to get that to you. There's also letters to parents that you could use and some other things that, you know, you might want to utilize to, you know, quickly send some information home to parents or whatever about the NOCTI assessment. But I will end it there. If there's any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Great. Thank you very much. If anyone does have a question, please feel free to type that in, as we have just a few minutes remaining in on our webinar for today. I would like to see if we could get Mark unmuted. He shared with us a NOCTI practice reflection piece that he uses, and I thought I could show that to you. Mark, there?
Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm trying to pull up the resource that you shared with us. Let me go ahead and get my screen going here. Mark's from the Erie County School, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and let me go ahead and show that. Hopefully you can see that tool that you shared with us. Could you just tell us a little bit about this and how you use it?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I can't remember what I did.
Okay, it's a practice reflection with some question prompts, and it looks like a diagram.
Yeah, I try to get a diagram as close to what I think that the test might be, and then have them reflect on how they would do it and if they would make any changes next time and what they did, and actually make this a final for them before they can go from one process to the next. So then when they get done with one welding process, I'm somewhat comfortable that at least they've been exposed to what I think is on the test, and that's where we go from there.
Okay, great. And do you have them, so in terms of the practice reflection, do you have them write out their responses and then do you review them as a group, or how do you usually?
No, just individually with the student.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you for sharing that. We'll include that, if you don't mind, as one of the attachments to our email so that other PLC members can see that and perhaps use that as a model. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Thanks again. All right. And with that, we, as I mentioned, will be sharing with you via email the different resources that you heard about today, test-taking tips, innovative ideas. That's something we didn't speak to directly, but just some creative ways to motivate students and get them enthusiastic about taking the test. So we'll share that with you via email. Those are some examples that you'll see. And just a final note about the last webinar, which will be coming up for your group on April 10th, and that is going to be focusing on math integration, math strategies, and lessons. So we'll look forward to meeting with you in April for that session. Are there any closing questions or comments from any of our PLC members? All right. Well, again, we thank you for your participation today. It was a great interactive session. Very happy to hear the questions and comments from our participants. And we're grateful to our two presenters, Darla Gettle and Michelle Bonser, for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. So we thank them and thank you for your participation. And we will follow up with you via email, and we'll talk with you again in April. Thanks, everyone.